Have you ever wanted to roleplay as a gay K-pop stan who's underwent plastic surgery in order to look exactly like Jungkook? Have you ever wondered what it would be like if you could pick up total strangers off the side of the road in America and not get instantly stabbed to death? And finally, have you ever been sexually attracted to someone due to their childlike qualities? For, legal reasons, I have not. But if you have, or answered yes to any of these, then Highway Blossoms and Therapy just might be the game for you. Highway Blossoms is a short, kinetic Eurivisual novel set in the American Southwest written by Redditors, which basically just means it's a linear digital picture book about a bunch of gay anime people in America, one of whom bought meth from Walter White himself. Since Highway Blossoms has literally no gameplay and is kinetic, which means there's no choices, let's just get into the story, because there's literally nothing else to do.
Subscribe to my YouTube channel now, Oni-chan. Fucking feel the testosterone leaving my body. I need to go beat a woman to get it back. I'll be right back.
Highway Blossoms is a not-so-short story following Amber, who kind of reminds me of Dream when he throws away the normal pills, and whose grandpa just died. Now, that comparison isn't completely fair to Amber. She's a little bit deeper and more nuanced than just Dream throwing away normal pills, but with her whole traveling around the whole America with her grandpa and whatever, not knowing about phones or whatever. She has that whole I'm not like other girls thing going on, and it's a bit more deeper than that, like I said, but it ultimately boils down to the whole normal pills thing, so just keep that in mind. She's on her way to a music festival that he bought them both tickets for. The festival starts in 2 weeks, and as she's driving there, she passes someone on the side of the road whose car has broken down. Being the deceptively kind bitch she is, Amber stops to help, which results in her immediate shanking and then kidnapping, with the rest of the game forcing the player to go through a series of puzzles and events in visual novel format to escape her captors. Or at least, that's how it'd go if this game was actually set in America. In actuality, Amber stops to help, and from there on, the story is about her blossoming relationship with Marina. Now, if as ridiculed previously, the setup of falling in love with a complete stranger you met on the side of the road sounds completely batshit insane, hold on to your hat, because these two girls literally have the luck of God and anime on their side for the entire game. Seriously, this game should have turned into a murder mystery at least 5 times. Now hey, it's not a terrible setup. Is it completely unrealistic and insane? Yes, but stories about unrealistic situations involving somewhat realistic characters mirror our own desires and are usually the most interesting. Anyways, talking to girl whose name we don't know yet, we find out her car hasn't broken down, it's just out of gas and she didn't even notice. She's also been out here trying to flag down every car that passes for a few hours now. And yes, you heard that right. Every car. It's at this point Amber realizes who she's dealing with and how dangerous the situation is, and decides it's better her than some creepy guy, which is exactly what a creepy guy would think, and offers to give the girl whose name she still doesn't even know a ride up to the station to buy some gas. This opening sequence tells us a lot about the kind of story we're about to embark on. It very obviously displays the traits our 2 main characters possess, and shows us more or less how the story's going to go down and how conflict is going to happen. Essentially, the opening shows us just how predictable the game is and will be. For example, by the end of this opening, we can already tell that Amber's the top, acts more traditionally masculine, is terrible at expressing herself, is a total cynic, is completely absorbed in a sea of self-loathing, yet is kind in her own way. Ironic, isn't it? She's the top, yet she brings herself down. In the same way, Marina is very obviously the bottom, acts more traditionally feminine, is a total ditz, acts somewhat childlike, and has a much more positive outlook on life than Amber. Now, you're probably asking, isn't being able to tell all this a good thing? And I mean, well, it's not really a bad thing, but it's also not really engaging. There is absolutely no subtlety. It would be pretty hard to not understand these 2 characters' dynamic right off the bat, and it's also easy to see how these characters complement each other and how they would create conflict with one another. The characters are just very easy, obvious reflections of generic traits people possess, and that's fine, I just prefer a little more. You probably can't predict the whole story just yet, but give it 5 more minutes and I bet you could guess a lot of things that happen in the game. This is one of my main problems, that the game is so direct, obvious, and uncreative, both with its characterization and the morals it's trying to push. Stories don't have to be super artsy and creative, but they do have to be stories. We'll come back to this once we've explored the story a bit more though. For now, to the station! At the station, Marina reveals that she is definitely a genetically modified human, because there is no way you can eat this much garbage and still look this good, especially not in America. Anyways, Marina left both her phone and wallet wallet in the car she abandoned, and I can't decide if this makes her more or less American. So Amber has to pay for the gas and her turd slushy. When we get to the counter, we see yet another contradiction to the classic American stereotype, although she does have a lot of personality, except here I'm not talking about fat, I mean she's an asshole. Finally, we see an actual American, who not subtly at all leads us into a conversation about the recently discovered treasure, of which Amber knows nothing about. To sum it up, some people found a journal in their garage left by some ancestor who struck it rich during the gold rush. This ancestor buried all his gold and died before he could ever go back for it. The journal gives hints as to locations he buried it, and the people who found it sold it to a publishing house who printed copies of it, so now the whole world knows. Essentially, Gold Rush 2.0. Marina reveals that this treasure is the reason she drove down here in the first place, and Amber calls bullshit because she's a bitch. The clerk gives Marina a free copy of the journal, they leave, and upon returning to the car, they don't. It was stolen.
Holy shit, that turnaround time was incredible. I mean, the fact the car got stolen so quickly does make me very suspicious that nobody, not even a single person, stopped by to help Marina, but whatever, fucking game movie logic or something.
Yeah, so that's probably enough info to be able to guess more or less where the story's going. Marina is super wholesome chungus, and Amber is super depresso, so she convinces Amber to go look for the treasure with her. Amber very quickly develops a crush on her because being lonely fucks you up, man, who would've known, and the bitch girl we met in the store turns out to be the one who stole Marina's car. While maybe you didn't see that coming, it's pretty damn easy to tell when you're playing the game yourself. She has character art, she's talking about something a little bit sus on her phone, and she has a name and voice volume in the menu. The only thing that's particularly surprising is how we actually come to know this. Basically, Amber figures out where the first treasure is because the journal is easy as fuck to decipher, apparently, and then we go there. Once we get there, it's super fucking crowded because, like I said, this journal is the easiest thing to decipher of all time. There's a funny loud guy with a loudspeaker trying to keep people off of the big rock because it's protected land, and Marina and Amber have absolutely no clue where to start. So they just start walking, hoping for the plot to magically happen, which it does. They run into the fucker from the store, yeah, at this point her sus meter is at least 90%, who reveals to Amber that she has a way of proving that the treasure is real.
Now, why she would show this supposed proof to a complete stranger makes absolutely no sense to me. Actually, I don't think anyone in this game has ever heard of stranger danger before, but whatever, it's convenient for us.
Amber tries to turn her down because she's actually stupider than Marina, but Marina uses her tactical reasoning skills to convince Amber to see what Mariah has to show. So they follow her back to her RV, we get introduced to the best character in the entire game, and are then assimilated into a cult. Mariah actually proves that the treasure is real, but Amber is too cynical for that nonsense, and then the possessed child shows us her crimes. Eventually, Mariah's dumbass reveals that she stole and salvaged Marina's car. Upon realizing this, best boy Joey bows apologetically,
Which makes him yet another in the long list of non-Americans in this American game.
Mariah is a dickhead, and Marina just forgives them. I mean, I saw it coming, but come on. Nobody, especially not an American, is this angelic. We go to a diner for dinner and experience some epic, wholesome, gay moments. Then Amber gets a brain blast and they find the treasure, and then in the morning they flex that on Mariah, who Amber then agrees to compete against as Pokemon rivals for the rest of the treasure hunt. If you can't tell, the story is about to become very formulaic. Go to place, look for treasure, have funny moment with Team Rocket, find treasure, gay, go on.
For one of these loops, the find the treasure and Mariah parts are omitted, which I actually didn't expect the game to do, but everything else that happens in that loop is pretty predictable and by the numbers, just in a different way, so...
The only thing that is truly unpredictable is when and where Mariah's crew will be shoehorned back into the story.
Now, I did just say the treasure hunt is very formulaic, and it is, and that's not great, but it's still a very important part of the story.
The treasure hunt provides the action, forces a time limit, and is the context for Marina and Amber's relationship. If it were, I don't know, gone and nothing were to replace it, the story would get pretty boring.
Yet that's exactly what happens.
The treasure hunt only takes up about 7 hours of the game, and with the DLC, I had a 16-hour playtime. What were those other 9 hours filled with? Absolute bullshit. The writers say that they intended for the treasure to be a backdrop to Marina and Amber's romance, and that's fine, but once it's over, they have no backdrop at all, and it's just two people chilling out in a relationship. That's like if Walter White only cooked enough meth to support his family and then spent the rest of the show just hanging out with them. The character interactions themselves are written fine. The progression of Marina and Amber's relationship, while it does seem astoundingly fast, feels about as authentic as I could guess. I know at least one of the writers was or is in a relationship, so the obvious joke of version Redditor writing about
romance doesn't quite work. The problem just boils down to there being nothing to keep the story interesting. The audience needs to be entertained. Walter White cooking meth is very entertaining and intriguing. It's a look into another world, and it keeps the viewer engaged with his relationships, yet the second half of Highway Blossoms has nothing like this. Imagine this, you've just seen something picturesque, a perfect kiss under a gorgeous sunset. The two main characters are rich from the treasure hunt, and Amber got the girl. I was 100% confident that the credits would begin to roll, but they didn't. Instead, the game went on for another 4-ish hours, and there was an entire DLC. Now, I get what the writers were going for. Relationships don't just stop there, there's a lot more to it, but it's just not interesting to watch, especially if there's nothing else going on. There are stories that have tackled this sort of idea before. Shrek is a pretty prominent example of a story about a character who doesn't understand love, but through his hardships and the people and donkeys he forms relationships with, comes to understand it and the value of it. Shrek, however, is interesting and nuanced, whereas this story is not. There's a clear difference between the way Shrek changes throughout each of the films through hard work and suffering, and to teenagers milling about doing whatever the hell they want. In the first half of Highway Blossoms, there is something driving the story, a time limit, a conflict, an adventure, but in the second half that goes away and it's just two people meandering about. Sure, they have relationship troubles, and they're well-written ones at that, but during the course of the story, the characters never really change due to these troubles. For example, here at the end of the main game, Mariah fucking smacks Amber with the truth that she's a fucking idiot pretentious bitch. And because of that, she gets back with Marina, who she'd had a fight with. That's the only change it prompts, though. The DLC has Amber go right back to being a fucking idiot pretentious bitch. The character growth is reserved for the last 20 minutes of the main game, so we don't get much payoff from that, and then the DLC just negates all of it, so there's no payoff there either, and we're just watching two people meander about being fucking morons. Two people, mind you, that are set for life in terms of money, which they never fight over spending, who already got over the hurdle of confessing, and who have no responsibilities or obligations. They are more or less in a perfect relationship, and when they do have individual problems, they aren't explored to a satisfying degree. For example, in the Highway Blossoms DLC, Marina realizes that she has no personal interests and has really just been along for the ride with Amber, but this is explored in a very juvenile way. Marina never really reconciles this problem, and by the end of the Highway Blossoms DLC, she literally says, "As long as I'm with you, I'm home," or something to that effect, which means she still has no personal interests and no desire to find them, and that's also not how this works. I went into this game for the hentai, but instead I got an attempt at a realistic look at a relationship, and I say attempt because this game completely forgets that humans cannot be sustained solely off of a relationship. Now, relationships can play a big part in our lives, and can even be a driving factor in why we continue to live, but we all need something more than just the one we love. For a lot of people, that's work, and they find their purpose in it or find the satisfaction of contributing something to the world in it that you don't find in a relationship. In Highway Blossoms, both of the characters just have each other, and I think that's a very juvenile way of looking at a relationship. The way I understand a relationship is that you're a team, you work together and bring each other up. You're both helping the other achieve their goals, but the love of the other isn't usually the goal. You've already achieved the love of your significant other in the falling in love phase. Now it's about putting that dedication to one another towards something else. Again, I don't think the writing itself is bad. The moment-to-moment interactions and the problems Amber and Marina face feel real, but I think the writing is missing out on the bigger picture, and that's what makes it feel unrealistic. I think it focuses too hard on the individual problems in a relationship and misses the wider scope of what it really means to be in a relationship, and additionally also misses the fact that successful relationships on their own aren't interesting to watch. There's a phenomenal anime called the Tatami Galaxy, absolutely one of the best anime I've ever seen, that focuses very heavily on this coming-of-age, finding your happily ever after theme. There's a quote from the end of the series that has deeply influenced how I look at this kind of media. However, it is a spoiler, so skip ahead if you're planning on watching it yourself, which I do recommend.
私と明石さんの関係がその後いかなる進展を見せたかはこの番組の趣旨から逸脱するのでお見せすることは差し控えたい。視聴者諸君も貴重な時間をドブに捨てたくはないだろう。成就した恋ほど語るに値しないものはない。
It is undeniable that Amber and Marina's relationship is a successful one. They are constantly able to overcome their problems and end up happily together, but the problem is they're already happily together before the ending, and they're just experiencing normal relationship problems that nobody outside of a relationship particularly cares about. When there's the treasure hunt and the blossoming romance, the game is interesting, but when it gets to two characters who are successfully in love and have all the money they need with no responsibilities, well, I'd have quit the game as soon as that started happening if I wasn't playing it for a video. I get that people enjoy this game, and I actually totally understand why. It's a wholesome Chungus feel-good story that sorta touches on some serious themes, but I personally believe games should be fun, and this one stops being fun around the halfway point. Or at least it stops being majority fun. It still has some good bits, but they're pretty buried. Amber and Marina's relationship actually got so boring and overdramatic for me that I started caring about the side characters more and dreading returning to the main story. Speaking of side characters, I mentioned that Joseph was the best character, but I never actually said why. Well, it's because his character is the only one that ever made me feel anything. He is ultimately just a normal dude, which stands in stark contrast to nearly every other character. As the story progressed, Amber started feeling like the antagonist, and Marina was frustratingly stupid, but Joseph continued to be a good guy. He isn't very interesting in the main game. He's just a foil character for Amber who isn't borderline evil, but in the DLC he's expanded upon in a very satisfying way. You see, we don't know everything about Joseph right off the bat. He's the only character who doesn't follow a rigid cliche, and as more is revealed about him, he begins to feel like a genuine human rather than a well-written caricature of one. So when something tragic is revealed about him in the DLC, I got a little emotional because it really felt like my bro was telling me something awful. This is what makes Joseph the best character. He isn't cut and dry. There's a bit more to him than we can initially expect, and as the story goes on, he grows and changes. Now you might be thinking, but Amber and Marina change, and to that I say no. They don't. The only person who kinda changes is Amber, and even then it's in like the last 20 minutes of the DLC, and it's mostly just her hammering in that she will eventually change and us not getting to see it. Oh, also, last comment, the game does have quite a few consistency problems. For starters, the main game has 3 separate CG artists and 2 different people doing coloring, which becomes a very apparent problem when I put some scenes next to one another. These 2 are colored in a way that gives the drawings depth and have more detail on the line work, as opposed to these 2 where one looks too bright and flat, and the other, I'm pretty sure these aren't Amber and Marina. Not a single person can agree on the color of Marina's hair. Outside of the CGs, the normal talking scenes, or whatever you call them, are generally very boring. There's hardly any movement, and when there is, it's very basic, and beyond the YouTube video style editing, the characters are otherwise totally static, which makes for a very visually boring visual novel. The DLC both has better CG art style consistency and movement, but then because of those improvements, it clashes with the main game really hard. You guys gotta stop switching your artists, oh my god! The final consistency problem is with the voice actors, mainly between Amber and Marina. Marina's voice actress has done a ton of work in anime dubbing and went on to voice Best Girl in the quintessential quintuplets, whereas Amber's voice actress is kinda just, Amber's voice actress. Now maybe this is just because I'm a disturbed Japanese-voiced waifu-obsessed fiend, but as soon as Marina spoke, I was invested in her character, whereas from the very beginning, I hated Amber. Now maybe it's mostly an issue on my end, but I do think to some degree the difference in voice acting experience changed my perception of the characters outside of how they were written. Alright, so there you have it. The characters are wholesome and have fun moments, but the crux of the story is unfortunately cringe. The game is set in America, yet features nearly no actual Americans, and the art is either lacking or frequently switching in style. The game is a lot better than what I commonly play on this channel, and I would still recommend it, yet I would also recommend you quit playing after the first kiss. Games are supposed to be fun, and this one stops being fun 9 hours before it's over. I give it 5 Tesses out of 10 Marines of Lolicon. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, I finished recording the script. Can I go home now?
Well, not until our loved and valued customers here at ToastyTime know that we have started a second channel, hereby referred to as SwishyShark34, which can be found in the video's description and will consist of funny moments and other high-quality content that will definitely want to be consumed. Also, to give us money on Ko-fi, because this company is broke.